Susan.
Hi, Marianne. It's
How are
nice
you
to see you.
today?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Great. I'm here with Susan Puflea, who is Senior Vice President and Director of Brand Strategy at Falls Communications here in Cleveland. And Susan is here to present to our class of onboarders who are young professionals. There are about 30 in the class, and they are here to gain all of the knowledge that you can share with them about marketing and, most importantly, their brand and what it means to have a personal brand. So you have been working in marketing, communications, and brand strategy for over 30 years.
I have.
So what is important about having a brand? What does it mean to have a brand?
Well, a brand is really an idea, is essentially what it represents when you break it down to kind of the core essence. And if you think about what that idea represents, it's a way to project to the world what the essence of an individual or a product or service or organization might be. It essentially sets expectations so that I know when I interact with you, I have a certain set of expectations based on my perceptions of your brand. And hopefully, what you are conveying is the unique experience that is you or your personal brand conveys exactly what you want it to be. So it really is the essence of what makes each of us uniquely who we are.
So how does one establish that unique personal brand in the way that you want the world to see you? I mean, we often hear about what's your why?
Yes.
You know, Simon Sinek has a whole TED talk on what is the why? So what's the why of a personal brand and why is it important? How do you form it?
Well, first let me say I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek's. I think his work is really groundbreaking in many ways and in some sense very simple yet very profound at the same time. So I am a big believer in understanding your why and using your brand as a way to convey that why. What it is a great question, and essentially you can think of it this way: it's your purpose. It's why you believe what you believe. It's why you do what you do. And ultimately, again, if you think about personal brand as a representation of who you are, what makes an individual authentically that individual, if people understand that aspect of you, they're much more likely to get you, to understand you, to connect with you. And if it's meaningful and relevant to them, it makes that connection much more powerful for other individuals. So knowing your why, understanding your brand, and at very early stages of your career, being able to not only articulate that, but live it authentically every single day and every interaction that you have, that really sets up young professionals for a lot of success and fulfillment in the future.
Now, I totally agree that it's critically important for young professionals to identify this early on because
Yes.
as I was told eons ago, very early in my career, it was, it's all about your reputation.
Yes.
Your reputation, how you present yourself is what carries you forward and really speaks to who you are. So go down a little bit about, I've identified my purpose, I know what I want to project, how do I manifest that? How do I communicate to you, this is who I am authentically, this is what my purpose is, this is what my brand is? What are the things that you do?
Sure. Well, let me first make one comment about how you determine what your purpose is. It really requires a pretty deep introspective journey. A lot of people think, oh, it's just very simple. And in fact, many people identify their job as who they are.
That's a great point.
And it really isn't. It's simply what you do. Ideally, your job provides a forum through which you can be your authentic self and really live your purpose every day. If it doesn't, that may be fine as long as you're getting that fulfillment somewhere else in your life, whether it's through community engagement or your personal life or what have you. But for most people, we hear everyone talking about it's all about purpose and I want passion and I want to make a difference. And that's people simply expressing this desire for fulfillment and making sure that what they're doing every day is actually connecting with who they are as people. So first, it really requires understanding yourself. Self-awareness is critical. If you can't do that kind of work and journey and you're afraid to really kind of probe deeply to understand who you are, what you enjoy, what you're passionate about, what you think you're good at, what your strengths are, where you have the ability to positively impact others, then that's really the first step that you have to take. So getting over yourself of doing that kind of work and being thoughtful about it, being self-aware is the first step. Secondly, to your point about, well, how do you then represent yourself? It actually is in everything that we do. Every interaction we have, every touch point, or as I like to say, that people have with another individual communicates something about the brand. And you know, we hear the expression, perception is reality, and it's so true, because your perception is the reality of my brand. And hopefully, the way you perceive me is going to be in the way that I want you to. So how I deal with you, how I speak, how I dress, how I correspond, how I write, all of these things, the quality of the work that I provide, all of those things have a representation of our brand in the world. And we send these messages out to people, and they're going to take them in and interpret them in a way that, again, hopefully is going to connect with what we want people to know about our brand. So for young professionals, it's critical to recognize, as you said, they're building their reputations today, and every single thing they do is going to impact that reputation. How seriously they take their work, whether or not they're putting in their best effort in every task that they're given, if they are stepping up and offering to participate in more things and be engaged in different things, the nonprofits that they choose to engage within our community, how they deal with social media. That is a huge opportunity to either
glad you brought that
benefit or destroy your brand.
Yeah, because you spoke a lot about how you start with your first impression of someone is how they appear, how they're dressed, how they carry themselves, and how they speak. And you talked about written correspondence and kind of your work ethic and what you value and how you manifest that. But can you touch on and then go deeper into social media? Because 10, 15 years, this was not an issue. It was just how you built and formed relationships. And now there's a whole other side. So how does social media play into the whole branding experience?
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. And the first thing for people to keep in mind is that there is no delineation anymore between personal and professional social media. It's all public. It's all one and the same. So someone might think, oh, well, I only use this channel for my personal activities. But really, if you think about it, the first impression that we form of people today is not even a face-to-face meeting. It's not a phone call. It's probably not even an email. It's someone doing a search on you. And all of your social media activity is going to come up. So what's the impression that someone's going to get? Are they seeing photos where you're out on holiday, having a fabulous time, maybe letting loose a little bit? Or are they seeing something that is really going to align a little bit more closely with how you want them to perceive you as a professional? So that's a huge mistake that people make, is they think that the two are separate, and they really aren't, because everything is public. Now, that's not to say that you can't have fun and you can't use social media for personal reasons. Just do so wisely. So as with every other interaction that you are going to have with someone, in every way that you're going to try to convey aspects of your personal brand, you have to be thoughtful about it. And it starts with those little descriptions that people can give of themselves that oftentimes we ignore. Who you are, your LinkedIn profile, what comes up in that first description of you. That's kind of, in the old days, we used to call that above the fold in the newspaper. That's really what people read more than anything. And you want to make sure that that captures people in the right way. So again, if you've done the homework to understand your personal brand, who you are, what you believe, what you're all about, you can use that work to convey who you are. And then as someone goes through your feed, what you share, who you connect with, how you present yourself, what you comment on or don't, all of those things are going to provide more and more clues to different people about your personal brand. And they can either reinforce what you want them to know, or they can lead them to draw conclusions that may not be what you want.
So to that point, if you want to change your personal brand, I mean, so many of us went through college and perhaps don't want to project that brand as we go forward in our professional lives. So how do you go about beginning to change your personal brand so that it becomes, as you evolve with your values and principles and how you want people to perceive you, that brand evolves with you? How does that happen? Does it happen through this questioning process, this journey, or what's your advice?
Yes, it does really, and evolve is the perfect word, Marianne, because that's really what it is. We are never static. You know, who you and I were when we first graduated from college is probably still part of who we are today, but hopefully we've grown well beyond that, right? You know, we're certainly dressing differently and hopefully better, given that for me at least it was back in the 80s and that was a very different time in fashion. But we learn as we go along, and hopefully we're taking those lessons and applying those lessons so that we constantly evolve and improve and get to know ourselves even better and really more clearly define what makes us tick, what matters to us. Again, who we are, why we believe what we believe, why we do what we do. Those are the kinds of questions. So it is very much a lifelong journey. And what's the central point is that it has to be authentic. It's got to be really who you are. And if it isn't, then that evolution, no matter what you try to do, you're not going to change your brand. You're not going to really be able to impact it, because as soon as people interact with you, they're going to see through what you're trying to show. It becomes like a mask that you take off at some point. Now that doesn't mean you can't reveal yourself over time to people. Certainly many of us do. But the reality is you have to constantly be thinking about, who am I? What matters to me? And how do I apply that in what I do? And one question I ask people is, what have you done for your brand today? And if you can't specifically say one thing that you've done, the reality is you're not managing it.
That's a great point. So that's a question that someone should ask every single day.
Yes.
What am I doing for my brand today?
Yes.
At the end of the day, what did I do?
What did I do?
want to
Exactly.
tomorrow?
Exactly. And it really comes down to objectives. And this may sound self-serving, to think about everything that you do as needing to have an objective. The reality is it just needs to connect with whatever your overall personal objective is. Again, does it connect back to your brand? Does it connect back to how you want to be spending your life, what you want to be doing, how you want to be interacting with other people? And if it doesn't, then it's time to consider making changes. And that may be radical changes, like we hear some people do, life changes, if you will, but it might just be evolution of things. And it might be deciding, I'd like to go in this direction next, and then setting the course for how you can get there, and using your mentors and the people whose advice and counsel you rely on to help guide you along that path.
So we don't have much time left, but I want to get one more question in. So you've had a hugely successful career in brand strategy. You've worked for some major corporations, Goodyear, Gerber, Purina, Southwest Airlines, and you really enlightened us a lot this evening about personal brand. So in your 30 years in doing this work, how have you seen an evolution? Whereas it seems like it's so much more complex now, perhaps, than when you started your career.
Well, it is, and part of that is because it's harder for brands to control their destiny today. When I first started, a brand would put a message out, often through an ad, and that's what people saw. And you had to watch it, because either you changed the channel, you had to get up and physically change the channel, and then remotes came out and you could push the buttons. But if you didn't change the channel, you were exposed to that message that a brand intended. Personal brands are the same way. There are a lot more opportunities for us to engage with people, but all of that complexity and all that instantaneous nature also means that there's the opportunity for more pitfalls. So it really requires us to be very diligent about how we manage our brands and actively be stewards of our brands and understand who we are, what our why is, think objectively about our brands and what we want to be doing, how we want to spend our lives, how we want to interact with others, and actively be stewards of our own brands.
It's a perfect note on which to end, to be active and just confident and courageous stewards of our brands to make sure that we're protecting our brands.
Absolutely.
Susan, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thank
and
you.
we look forward to hearing more from you very shortly.
Thanks, it's my pleasure.